In today's show, we discuss how does folklore manipulate our society?
And now, the TNT Talk Show, daring to go where other podcasts fear to tread.
Hello, I'm Tony Fasulo, and I share the stage with my esteemed friend and colleague Tayo Boya. Tayo, hello, my friend, once again. I hope you're keeping safe and well.
What the hell, Tony? What you gonna do, eh?
Hope you're doing better than I am because my voice is starting to go. Oh no, just when we're
Oh,
recording the show. Oh dear.
oh.
Anyway, come on, say hi to our audience. Come on.
Hello, audience. How are you doing? I hope you're keeping
Yay,
well.
yay, yay, and more yay.
I'd like to share with you the wise words.
Oh, no, no, no. You do this on purpose. You do it to pain me, to
I know I do.
drive me insane with this guy.
I'm not even denying it. But at the same time, I do want to share with the audience these. I mean, just listen to this. These words of wisdom from Dr. Isaiah Henry Masatamba. Behold, the deepest well makes the shallowest echo. Who are you to question the gods? Who are you to question the gods? Wow. It's just amazing.
Utter nonsense.
Well, I don't know why you keep saying that. I mean, by the way, audience, here's a shock. This past few days, I'm on Facebook and a totally unexpected source makes reference to the great and wonderful wise Dr. Henry Isaiah. You'd
Oh,
never guess who it was. Not in
who?
a million years.
Come on, then. Who was it? Come on, enlighten me.
It was you.
Me?
You.
Me?
On TNT Talkers, I
Oh,
posted,
yeah.
if you recall, a meme and who said, this reminds me of Dr. Henry Isaiah Henry. It was you. And I can't believe it. He is gradually beginning to see the
Oh
light.
no, I'm beginning to see how poor these blooming quotes are. That's all. Oh dear, dear,
Well, who are
dear.
you to question the gods? We will see. Let's you see.
Anyway, come
Yeah.
on. Enough of these shenanigans. Let's move on with the topic of today. But before we actually begin, you know I'm going to reach out to you, wonderful audience. Please, please, please keep continuing to like, subscribe, and comment on any of our shows. And as we've said before, if you want to chat with us directly, so you can get direct responses, come onto our Facebook group, which is the TNT Talkers group. It's totally open, totally free. Come and join us on there if you want to chat with us directly. Otherwise, please, please continue to comment, like, and obviously subscribe on whatever platform you're consuming our content on. Right, today's topic, and this is another one of yours. It's an interesting one. It's entitled "How Does Folklore Manipulate Our Society?" Now, those are strong words, Dyer. What manipulate? Do you want
Yeah.
to elaborate?
Well, I first came across this as topic in a different form. It surprised me at the time. It was someone asking or commenting on the fact that originally Cinderella's stepsisters were beautiful.
Yep.
But in all my lifetime that I've read, I mean, since being a small boy with this huge book I had, 500 pages or something of fairy tales. My mother managed to gift it in my absence. She gifted it to someone else, and I'm still upset. Donkey's years late, decades later, it's like, how's my book? You know, go and give my book to other people. Anyway, she did, and I remember Cinderella from that book. I remember her sisters were the ugly stepsisters. In fact, ugly stepsister is now burnt into my brain as as a meme, if you like.
Yeah, it is.
You
You're
don't
right.
think beautiful stepsisters, you think
No.
ugly stepsisters. And this person who was uh, commenting on this said it has had a deleterious effect on our society. That's had a horrible effect on our society. And the person to whom she was speaking was like, why, how? Said, you see, originally the stepsisters were beautiful and Cinderella was beautiful. And it wasn't Cinderella's beauty that attracted the prince. It was something else. It was her honesty, her virtue, as compared to the stepsisters who, in the original story, actually mutilated their feet so that they could fit into the shoes.
Slipper, yeah, exactly.
So
The
they
glass
were being
slipper.
dishonest. It was Cinderella's honesty that was attractive. But if you bring up little girls thinking that beauty is what is attractive, that is what they will grow up to think.
But beauty is attractive.
No,
That's the
if you
very
think that
nature of
beauty is
beauty.
if you think that beauty is the choice that will make a man select you, as opposed to your honesty, your virtue, that is what you will drive towards. And in our society, this woman argued, that is the problem, that women put on makeup and they think that's enough. They think that's it. And then they're surprised when it isn't enough. When men go, yeah, well, we don't really care, because they've been trained since childhood to think that the beauty is the selector rather than virtue. In fact, if you want to annoy a modern woman, you can say, what is your body count? And for those who don't know, body count is the number of men she has slept with.
Sexual partners. Yeah.
Number of sexual partners. And they get really upset by that. But it goes back to this idea about virtue. A woman, as I try to put it, a woman is interested in a man's future. A man is interested in a woman's past. And those are just the facts of life. Now, I'm going to argue that this person was absolutely correct, that we can look at a history of not just accidental manipulation of society, not accidental, not Disney trying to make a quick buck and just trying
well, they
to.
are. That is their remit at the end of the day.
Yeah, that is, they're trying to make money. So to get into the ins and the outs in the children's show, on a cartoon, in a film where you've only got 90 minutes to get your message across, you take shortcuts. But other people knew exactly what they were doing when they started tampering with these myths, and that's what I'm going to try to.
So you're basically, if I can paraphrase how I've understood what you're saying that you're blaming Disney in an indirect way of manipulating society because they've softened some of the stories that they've written in order to increase their profit share, as opposed to, well, you're sort of saying they're trying to manipulate our understanding of life, how we should see things. Well, can I just pull you up on something about beauty?
Well, you're wrong, by the way. That's not what I'm trying to say, but go on.
Well, I'm going to say something about the beauty. Your thing is, that is exactly what men look for. It is, but it's not the thing that keeps them there. You see, looks and attractiveness catch the man's eye. But what keeps a man there are a lot of the other traits that are not talked about. And that's the difference. So beauty shouldn't be dismissed because it does attract men. Of course it does. So that's why women focus on it. But if they're only focusing on beauty, then they've missed the point, which you're right. Because there are other factors to keep the man there. Not just beauty alone. Beauty brings the man there, but the other elements of the personality is what keeps the man there. And those are things that, like you say, virtue, honesty, the way that the female can look after the man. These are all things that come about afterwards. But if someone hasn't got any beauty whatsoever, I'm sorry to say this, in the society we live across the piece, it will be challenging for that person to find a partner. Not saying it will never happen, of course it will. but it's challenging. Whereas beauty will attract men. Of course it will. It's fundamental from the year dot.
Now,
So to
now,
dismiss it out of hand is a bit harsh.
now, I would say that what you've just done is just straw manned me. You created a straw man and you attacked the straw man. That was never my position that beauty wasn't important. Actually,
It sounded
cast your
like it
mind.
anyway.
Well, cast your mind back. I said in the original story, the two stepsisters were beautiful.
Yes.
Well, there you go. The original story, the stepsisters were not ugly. So I don't know why you're saying that I'm trying to push this kind of like ugly is good kind of thing.
No, I didn't say you said
It's
that, but
not.
you were like dismissing beauty as if
Yeah,
it didn't
well,
mean
yeah,
anything.
ultimately, yes. For getting married, which is what the prince did with Cinderella, he got married. He married, like you said, he established a long-term relationship that was not based on beauty.
No, it shouldn't
Well,
be.
that's what I said.
Oh, okay. Well,
Okay,
yeah,
so that's
but to
number one.
dismiss beauty out of hand, like, oh no, it doesn't
Who
mean
did?
anything. No.
Who
Okay.
did?
Well,
I
that's
didn't. That's
my
what I mean by
understanding of how you came across.
well, I'm glad I've been given an opportunity to clear that up
Okay.
because no,
Wonderful.
beauty, actually, beauty doesn't matter because men age like fine wine, women age like milk. So
Well,
anyone who's out there who's getting married or entering a long-term relationship based on someone's looks, you're an idiot because those looks are like yesterday's story, man. They're not going to last. Anyway,
well,
what was
that's
the other
right,
thing I was
because
going to
looks fade, don't they? They just do.
yeah,
But
not just fade. Something horrific happens.
oh,
I don't know whether it's
I
due to
wouldn't say
collagen
that.
or whatever it is, but yeah, I've got a
No,
whole
that's not true. You're very, very harsh here. That's not true. Looks do continue to a point, but of course we all get older, and our skin obviously is not as youthful as it was when we're younger. It doesn't retain the moisture quite as much. And yes, of course we age. We do age. Everybody.
everybody ages, but a man in his 50s or 60s, what's his name? The one that all the women like.
Yeah, but he's
He
handsome.
started as a doctor he was a doctor. I can't remember his woman name. He married
Oh, what?
this
You mean George Clooney?
there you go, George Clooney. You look at
Yeah.
him at his age, and then you look at some female actress at his age, and the female actress, excuse me, you really wouldn't roll over hamburgers to get to her,
You're
man. In
being
bed, you
very disingenuous here. You haven't singled out any particular female. You're making a broad, glib term here that
I know
you're.
so many of them. I've got an entire series of videos that just we share with young men to try to convince them. I share with young men to show them, guy, this is not beauty is not a selector for a long-term relationship. Look at this. So
Well,
I've
okay.
actually got videos. I
Let me
mean,
give you an interesting thing. What does lust?
Madonna.
Yeah, okay. What's lust?
Sorry,
What's lust? What's
Lust
that
is wanting to get a leg
foundation?
over.
Yeah. What's it based on?
Need,
Need, possibly.
need.
Yes, yes. But there has to be
I
some
mean,
level of attraction there.
in a dry spell, you put it over anyone. Do you know what I mean? Especially alcohol induced. I mean, you wake up in the morning and think, Jesus H.
That's not what I'm talking about here.
I think
You're
we're wandering
t-
from I think we're getting away from
we are
our
getting away from our main
and
topic
you
here.
made me forget the second thing. The first one was you said something about beauty, and I'm trying to
I had to address that point because you'd made a
you
statement which
misrepresented
no, but
my
it
position.
came across, and if I misunderstood it, and I dare say some of our audience may have misunderstood it, hence
Okay.
why I wanted to clarify that point.
Yeah. Now I've forgotten the second point I was going to make. So it's gone. If I remember, I'll bring it back. So back to where we were. Oh yeah. Excellent. Secondly, no, I'm not saying that Disney went out of its way to wreck society. It didn't. Disney was just doing what it thought was best for its product.
Yes, for its audience.
But it didn't take into consideration, I mean, yes, it didn't take into consideration the impact of those choices. Look, every time we make a choice.
I mean,
yes.
okay. Let's look at another platform. Let's look at X, for instance, or Facebook or YouTube. Should they should they be morally looking at their platforms and going, oh no, there's loads of stuff on here we should be not putting on, because morally we could be affecting the population that consume the products on here.
No,
Now
they
you're
shouldn't.
saying,
Because no, they shouldn't. And I'll tell you why. Because it's a different kettle of fish.
why is it a different kettle of fish?
Because we are the consumers, and we are the same people who are actually contributing to all the platforms you mentioned. We, the public, contribute. It's an open discussion, and let the
Right.
best argument win. So for one side,
But
one
that's not
side
how
to
it works, is it?
well,
If
that's how
somebody
it's
is
going to work
loud and got
now.
loads of money, guess what? They get the platform. So it's
What?
not the best argument.
Sorry,
It's
what?
who's got the most money gets
What's
the.
that got to do with people having the freedom? I mean, what you call it? Elon Musk opened up X so that now people, the other side, on for years were getting just one side, the left. Now the right, the conservatives can get in, and they can have a word. And I think that's actually why Trump is, in large part, largish part, why Trump won, because finally the other side, the conservative side, could get a flipping word in. We couldn't before. Everything, when I left X, well, in that time, the time was Twitter. I left Twitter because I could be insulted for saying what I was saying, but when I responded, I was always banned and things, and I just got frustrated. Same thing with Useless Tube. Every time I put my point of view across, it just disappears. You don't see my comment. Somebody else gives me some leftist woke comment that stays. Eventually, you stop trying.
What's this got to do with?
You brought it up.
Yeah,
You
I
said,
brought it up because you're saying that Disney have got a moral.
yes, because they are the creators of their content. These other platforms, they don't create the content; they just host it.
But that doesn't matter.
So if they stay out of it, we will have this conversation we're supposed to have. A society is supposed to have a conversation. We're supposed to have open debate.
What's this got to do with Disney?
Well,
Disney
when
are an
Disney puts
enterprise
out-
to make money.
When Disney puts out a product, there's no debate. The only possible debate there is you don't go to watch it.
Yeah.
But that's the only possible debate. But Disney is going to sit down and is going to try to figure out ways to, well, they used to, and then they went woke. Back in the old days, before they went woke, they used to try to make a film that they thought would appeal to people. In doing so, what they tried to do was they had to package their product in such a way that the elements were easy, the concepts were easy to get across to a large audience, to the mass audience. They didn't have time to get into the niceties like we're doing now. Well, they're pretty, but they mutilated their feet, so they're not. You don't have time to do that in a movie, as a cartoon movie. You're going to show little children. Are you going to actually show them feet be mutilated? No, you're not. So you're going to create a product that goes across easily, that is consumed easily, and you don't actually think, well, what are we trying to teach the kids here? No, frankly, if it's not something disreputable, and like, for instance, today people put out stuff that when I was young would never be shown to children. It wouldn't even be shown to adults, never mind to children. And they put it out today, and then we're surprised that society is going to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, but you can't put that down to Disney. Disney does the opposite of that. Disney.
I'm trying. That is what I'm. You're not really understanding.
Yes, I'm listening, but you're not making the point clear enough, because you're almost blaming Disney for the
I'm
content
saying
creator.
Disney is a content creator that did what it had to do, but there were long-term consequences. That's the whole of my statement.
Okay. Now, YouTube, let's move it forward, is not a content creator.
Correct.
But the stuff that it puts on there has long-term consequences. That it allows on its platform has long-term consequences. So they both have consequences.
No, says who?
What do you mean, says who?
No, well, you're just saying that, but why? Because if Useless Tube does not prevent people from commenting, then people like me will go in and say, well, this is a load of you-know-what, baloney, and I'll give my reasons why, and then there'll be a strong debate, and the ones who are right... You always assume
there'll be a debate and it will be sensible.
There always is. There always is. In the comment section, there always is someone saying, this is nonsense. For
Yeah.
example, there's
But they
this
say
woman.
this is nonsense on stuff that's come from, most people know is factual. I'll give you an example now about the flat earth, where people then put out stuff. Oh, this is nonsense. The stuff about the earth being a globe. No, it's not. It's flat. So what are we saying here?
Exactly. So what we're saying is, you saw it and you made a comment. I've seen it. I've commented. People comment, and the fact of the matter is that for this, most people are going to come. They're going to read the comments. They're going to see the logic in what we are saying. The rational people are saying, and they're going to dismiss it. They're going to go, "Oh, okay, yeah, this is rubbish. I'm not going to accept this." That's fine. What you've just done is you've allowed people to have their free speech and everything. The platform has done what's supposed to do. It stayed the hell out of the argument, and common sense wins. You and I, we've got this. I think it is the fundamental disagreement we have in all our videos. We have very different ways of looking at life. You don't trust people, and you're a fascist by nature. And I will keep repeating this point. You are the fascist because you're always like, I will control what you can think. I don't trust you. And I'm like, leave people alone. They will make mistakes,
listen,
but eventually.
One thing I do not want, if I've got people that I care about, I want to ensure that they are not subjected to things that I think are not right.
That's not your right. Not until before they're 18.
Before they're
Whilst
18.
They're minors.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
But after the minors,
so,
no.
When Cinderella comes out from Disney, I'm happy for it to be played to my young sons when they were young.
Well, before, I mean, now you probably want to actually go online, as I do, and see exactly what this modern film says and what values it is pushing. Because 99% of the time now, it's untenable. You can't watch it.
I agree. But what I'm saying, for the children, which is what a lot of these stories are for, they don't need to see the in Cinderella's case, the stepsisters having their feet mutilated. It's unnecessary.
Yeah.
They can have a sanitized version because it's for children.
There's no argument here. I agree with you. I was just saying this is what happened. This is what Disney did, and this is the long-term effect on it, is that we moved the discussion from, unintentionally, I believe, we moved the discussion from the Cinderella's virtue to Cinderella's beauty. That's my entire position. That is what Disney accidentally did. That's my position. Okay. Now, I'm saying that there are other people who don't do these things accidentally. They know very well what they're doing. It's insidious and it's dangerous. And one of the examples I want to give, and I've been trying to pronounce the name, is a German folk poem. What do you call it? Epic poem. And it's, for those of you who know what I'm going to say, if I mangle this, I'm very sorry. I've been trying to practice it all afternoon. Nibelungenlied. Oh dear.
That sounded awful.
Nibelungenlied.
Nibelungenlied.
Leads. Yeah, it ends with a D, but it's like a DT. Nibelungenlied. Something like that. Okay. And it is a portrayal. No, so the original story is a 13th century German epic poem. It tells a tragic tale of the Burgundians, a royal family of medieval Germany, and their downfall. Siegfried, you know Siegfried. Actually, you said you don't know Siegfried. Siegfried is portrayed as being tall, blonde, with flowing locks, and he's brave. You know, everything that you want in a man's man. You know, a man of valor, brave, good leader, all that sort of thing. Charming. In English terms, you had a lot of chivalry and all that sort of thing. Unfortunately, he was betrayed by his brother, who was kowtowing to King Gunther, sort of like an evil mastermind who wanted to, for reasons of his own, oppose our main man, Siegfried. And I can't pronounce his name either, Kriemhild, who was Siegfried's wife. When Siegfried's brother killed him, she plotted her revenge.
So
Sweet.
Siegfried's brother actually killed Siegfried,
Hagen was his name, I believe.
and
Hagen.
he killed Siegfried
He killed
because he was
Siegfried.
jealous.
He was just carrying out the king's orders, as far as I can tell.
So he actually killed his own brother under instruction from the king because
Precisely.
okay,
Right. And
right.
Kriemhild took umbrage to
The
this,
wife, yeah.
and she married a Hun. Was it a Hun? Yes, king of the Huns. She married Etzel, and then she got Hetzel to attack the Burgundians and to kill all of them,
Including her ex-husband's brother,
including her ex
Hagen.
brother-in-law.
Yeah.
And I think she had King Gunther killed, but she died too.
Oh,
So it's a tragic. I mean, nobody came out of this smelling of roses. The thing is this: originally, excuse me, I hope that didn't come on air. Originally, there were epic Christian elements because the thrust of the poem was seeking revenge and not letting God handle things. You know, like the Christian thing about forgiveness and sort of like getting on with your life, and bad things happen, but you pray and you get faith, right? Those Christian elements. So it was a morality tale that if you let your heart be ruled by darkness and rage and anger, it will bring destruction to you. Do you see what I'm saying?
okay, yeah.
That is not what our mustachioed gentleman in the 20s and 30s in Germany and his mob, that's not what they did with it. What they did with it was to take it and to cast the Huns as the barbarians attacking the sweet, pure Aryan race.
Okay.
And they actually made it required reading when haven't changed it all around to suit their purpose. It became required reading in schools. Their version of it.
Okay.
So
that happens a lot across society. There's been examples elsewhere of things
exactly
like this.
they used the Nibelungenlieds to promote ideas of German racial superiority. They interpreted Norse gods as Aryan archetypes, and they claimed that Teutonic folklore proved that German leadership is natural and they are
superior,
and that it's actually their destiny to rule over others because that's how they were created, or that's how they are. That is
but isn't this just another example of manipulation of your fellow citizens by some dictator, demigod, somebody who wants to be in power and somehow manipulates their population to their way of thinking? We could also attribute this, as some people have done, with some religions, that they are written in such a way that controls the populations based on the teachings in the religious texts. So this has been happening for years and years and years. Of course it has. Where the reason why the writing is there is because it's to steer the demographic to a certain way of thinking and behaving. And that's nothing new.
Well, we're talking specifically about folklore.
Well, we're
Up
talking about folklore,
until
but I'm just aligning it with a similar thing. You're making out like this folklore that the Aryan race is superior, and certain gentlemen in the second, just before the Second World War, used it to their advantage, and clearly they did.
Well, I didn't know all that. This is all news to me.
Okay.
And I dare say news to our audience. I mean, I've always thought of fairy tales as being, I mean, yes, I knew. I mean, we've all heard of Aesop's, what do you call them? The one
Aesop's.
called Aesop. The one called fairy tales. What are they called? Fables.
Fables, yeah.
Aesop's fables. We who hasn't heard about the low hanging fruit or whatever it was, and the fox couldn't reach it, quite reach it, and then the fox walked away and saying something like, "Yeah, it was probably bad anyway."
Yeah.
You know that story?
Yes.
Okay.
And we've got Peter
So
crying wolf, for instance. That's another story.
thank you, the boy
Yeah.
who cried wolf.
Yeah,
So we
exactly.
grew up
So
with this, but we didn't. I didn't think I was being manipulated. I thought it was showcasing
what a
a
truth.
moral. Yes, a moral. Hey, that's a moral of a story. What do you think about it? Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Don't cry. Don't tell too many lies. People won't believe you. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, if you can't achieve something, you can sort of hug yourself and say, cope cope with the situation and go, nah, it probably wasn't that important anyway.
Yeah, but that everything gets
But
passed on and gets changed. Everything.
yes, but that's not my point. My
Oh,
point is, it never crossed my mind that there were evil people out there who knew what they were doing and who were doing this on purpose to sell a particular position. It didn't cross my mind. I wasn't trying to protect the children from that sort of thing. I mean, now I suppose with like wokeism and that, I didn't even think that that's what they were doing. I just thought that they were corrupting the children by introducing things too early into a child psychology that I didn't see the point. Why are we talking about sexual matters and gender things to children? That was my main beef. It wasn't that
well,
when they get to be.
someone has argued, and I've heard them say this, that they shouldn't give religion to children, any religion,
Hmm,
because that's the formative years. They're hearing it, they believe it carte blanche when they're not at a position to critically think. So same applies. Someone could say rightly, you shouldn't be giving religion to children. Teach them morals by all means, but don't give them religion. Let them see religion once they're older, so then they can be more critical of some of it, rather than when you feed it to a child at a young age, they're going to accept it all warts and all as is the truth. And we've discovered over many years it's not always the truth. It's been written to manipulate. And going back to what we're talking here, folklore is exactly that. It's stories that are passed on word to mouth. Very few have been written because people couldn't write back then, so things are told in a story format. And over a fireplace, you're hearing a story, someone changes the slant, like Chinese whispers. Over a period of time, that story changes. And if someone wants to amend a story because of a particular narrative in their village, or something's happened with a relationship, they want to sort of put a message in, of course they're going to use a story and manipulate it to get a particular message across. That happens all the time, all the time.
but folk tales were often, especially as Dr. Isaiah Henry would have said, "Who are you to question the gods?" Would have been one of the one of the themes. Oftentimes, I think they call it Anasazi. I'll come to it later. The African, West African, from the coast, from the western coast of Africa. Anyway, so folk tales often contain moral lessons that
Yes,
guide behavior,
absolutely they
and
do. That's part of the
this was
purpose,
what
isn't it?
I claim. Why I actually I wrote it down. I thought because it was what I wanted to say, that folklore is a surprisingly important facet of human society that I've come to think of as society talking to itself across generations. That's how I've come to think of it. I've reading about this and researching this. I realized that it's basically your grandparents talking to you. That when you were a small child, you'd be sitting on your granddad's or grandmom's lap, and he or she will be telling you stuff, and probably telling you some kind of folk tale, some story. And that was that wisdom of that generation talking to the child,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. And
Okay,
poems and songs along the same lines.
exactly. Well,
But
some of the poems, not
yeah,
all of them, but yeah.
but it's again up to the parents or grandparents to choose which one they wanted to tell. For instance, let's say they'd heard several poems or fables over the years. They're going to tell the children the ones that they like. They're not
Yeah.
going to tell them all, are they? They might go, "Oh, actually, that's one I don't really like. I thought it was a bit gruesome. I won't. I'll tweak that one. I'll sanitize it slightly, or I'll twist the story. I don't know. I if one of the stories was, oh, the kids all got killed, they may turn it around and go, oh, the kids got captured. So they'd soften it. Of course they do. That's the very nature of folk tales. They all exaggerate. They all change. It's Chinese whispers from the original when it was first released to what we hear. It's probably had 50 iterations, and each one is slightly different. Chinese whispers. It's part of society.
Chinese whispers is part of society, and I put it to you that when enough whispers gather, when enough whispers gather, that is society talking to itself and actually taking a deviation from the original, which is fine. That is the growth, the evolution of that society. And that's how it should work.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's fine. For example, okay, let's get down to nitty-gritty. The Legend of Robin Hood. What does that does that tell us? What was that trying to preach?
Well,
Robin Hood.
it was
Rebellion against what authority?
it was wasn't it the story? I mean, my understanding of it, obviously I don't know the history, but what I know is that the rich were viewed as almost evil
No.
and the poor were virtuous because the poor didn't have anything. Robin Hood was deemed a savior because he took from the rich to give to the poor.
Hmm.
But I'm understanding that that wasn't necessarily true because he was just a robber and he took money from anybody and he
Was it like
only
my uncle? We used to call him forgetful Robin, we used to call him.
go on
He took from the rich, but he forgot to give it to
give
the
it to the poor.
Uncle Forgetful Robin. No, yeah, he forgot about that bit. No,
Yeah,
no, yes, well, we don't even know if there really was a Robin Hood.
no, there wasn't.
So, but there was this legend of someone who rebelled against, this is the important bit, unjust authority. Because if you remember, it was actually fighting to keep, was it King Richard? Or was fighting to keep King Richard's throne for King Richard upon his return from the Crusades. And it was King John who was the sort of ruling badly in the place of King Richard.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm not. That's a story that I've not been that interested in, to be honest. So I don't know if I mean, I believe that Robin Hood didn't exist, but the story just came
yeah, I think it's a
about
bit
to
of an arse to
reinforce
say
it.
that he was off with Maid Marian. And I mean, anybody who knows anything about Maid Marian's women, leaving a castle to go hang out in the woods with a bunch of yahoos,
No,
that's
no,
that doesn't really work for most women. So
no.
I don't think so.
It's
But she was virtuous. You see, again, go back to that virtuous, loyal,
yeah,
faithful sort of
because
thing.
those are great traits
Exactly.
for any person.
And
So
then we tell that story often enough, and that's what women aspire to be. Not only F
beauty.
only F fans. I mean, I'm talking about that platform
Oh, I
now.
see.
Right? Anyway, so then
But
you
that's a
got,
separate platform. I mean, now you've mentioned it. OnlyFans is based on
oh, we're
lust
actually going to
and
say it, are
beauty.
we?
Well, some people, but what we're going back to folklore,
Yeah.
these stories have been passed down and they've been passed down and they're tinkered with. They are. It's just the way it is. It's like a
Yeah, but
famous
Robin
film.
Hood, I don't know how many kids nowadays can actually tell me about Robin Hood. They've been put aside.
They have because Disney and the main creators of films have just, the last film.
No, because some people that the president-elect Trump says he's going to get rid of, some people didn't want that kind of morality in our schools. That's why it was removed. It wasn't Disney. Nothing to do with Disney. I mean, Disney had to come on board because of this DEI thing, but which before it became DEI, it was a certain something.
Explain to some of our listeners who may be tuning in for the first time, unsure what DEI means. They were an acronym, so.
All right, DEI is an acronym. It's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it is supposedly an attempt to create a society that is diverse and equitable and inclusive. It all sounds very, very nice until you look into it and then you find that it's not as great as advertised.
Well, it's only because the reason for that is because they put in numbers against each of these, where they're setting targets, where that starts to get a bit dodgy. When
long story short, what you're saying is, as I believe I can say what you're saying is, they are seeking outcomes instead of opportunities. They're seeking equal outcomes instead of equal opportunities.
Yes, absolutely.
And which, of course, is a terrible idea. Okay, so the boogeyman,
boogeyman, however you say it.
The boogeyman. Many cultures have stories about frightening creature, and in Europe, I believe, it's actually called the boogeyman. Well, is it Europe or America called the boogeyman?
America, I think.
America. Now, he is used to scare children into good behavior. Yep. If you don't behave this way, the boogeyman will come and get you. Now, I never grew up with a boogeyman because my mother didn't believe in the boogeyman. What she believed in is a slipper. And her slipper was tended to show up quite often and was very, very fierce. And there was no arguing or anything. The slipper came off, bam, 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 end of story, jog on. I didn't need any bogeyman. Go to bed is go to bed, okay? That's Well, other children, apparently, they were lucky. They didn't get the slipper. They got the bogeyman. Now, you could say that is, it is manipulation. But it's a friendly kind of manipulation in the sense that the boogeyman will get you. Eventually, you will grow out of it. You'll realize there is no boogeyman. I had two things that I did have. I had the Tooth Fairy, and I had Father Christmas.
Yep.
If I didn't behave well, those were inducements. It wasn't to make me afraid. So maybe my parents knew what they were doing. They didn't try to make me afraid. They tried to induce me to
behave a certain
way. And they say, well, if you do this, then we'll see what, winking or not, we'll see what Father Christmas, that toy you want, that bicycle, whatever, XYZ. And the Tooth Fairy came anyway, whether I'd been good or bad. That was the great thing about it. That's why I like the Tooth Fairy. It didn't matter how I behaved. The Tooth Fairy would show up.
Exchange for a tooth, regardless.
And my tooth would be gone in the morning. I'd be like, he came. Look, I got, sixpence or whatever it was. A fabulous amount of money, by the way, back in those days, guys. If you don't know, sixpence, for those who don't know, back in the day was what today we call 50p.
50 pence.
50 pence.
But again, for our American audience, 50 cents.
I see. The equivalent, But it could buy a lot of stuff, man.
Yeah, of course.
Keep you inflation for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Or sweets, candies, I think.
Easy.
Yes, that's a lot of money. So I love losing teeth.
Right, let's get back to the story here.
Yeah. I'm telling you, these cultures. Now, this I don't know. I've seen. I used to watch K-drama, but K-drama is a bit of a drag.
K-drama? What's K-drama?
Oh, Korean dramas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can't watch Western stuff anymore. It's too woke, disgraceful. So I started watching Korean things. What it is, Korean, they're on Netflix, for example. If you have Netflix or I don't know, whatever streaming platform you want, you can get a hold of Korean dramas. What you notice is the setup. It'd be like 16 episodes. First 3-4 episodes, fantastic. They really know how to tell a story. It's fantastic. The characters are well drawn. You invested everything. Then it gets into like the ins and the outs, and it gets a bit involved. And you think, well, really, here's where I stopped watching. South Koreans, let me face to face, honestly, you guys don't know how to end the story. You don't know. I mean, I've watched like 6, 7, 8 of your blooming epics, and each time the end has been awful. It's just like, yeah. And you think, well, what the hell, man? I've just spent 12 hours of my life watching this, and you just come on and go, yeah. What the?
But maybe they believe that the journey is more important than the destination.
They must do, because it really sucks. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing up is that the Japanese have got something called kitsune, which is very close to something I've heard of in these K dramas, which is a shape shifting fox.
Oh, okay.
And the shape
shifting fox. Never heard of that. Okay.
And I've watched it in, I think, maybe 2 K drama series. And one is the nine-tailed fox of this is Korean, of course, not Japanese. The nine-tailed fox. And the thing is, they're a bit like Loki, the Loki character in Norse mythology.
Marvel. Yeah. Marvel as well.
Marvel. It's a bit like Loki. Are they good? Are they bad? Ambivalent. It's really hard to tell.
Right.
Are they good or are they bad? And the thing is that these stories are to teach the children in Japan the caution in relationships. And you think, I wonder what kind of effect that has had on Japanese people. If they're very cautious about relationships, is that why they don't trust foreigners? Is that why they sort of seem to be quite isolated, even in their own society? Is it
if they don't trust relationships, is this another reason why the birth rate is falling?
Well,
because they're having a terrible problem with birth rates.
Yeah.
Could it be that this whole way of explaining stories in these folklore manner has actually had a detrimental effect unknowingly on the Japanese population, where they don't trust partners, don't want relationships, don't want commitment for fear of whatever, based on a lot of these folklore? I don't know.
Well, I tell you what, I was talking about the nine-tailed fox of the Korean myth. Well, South Korea is actually the country with the worst birth rate on the planet.
It is.
So, wouldn't it be interesting if someone in South Korea, if some people in South Korea and Japan listen to this episode and think, oh my God, TNT talk show, they've actually shown us the way. Let us rework our fairy tales and say, have kids, big families and so on and so forth. And we laugh, but we're actually saying that society uses folk tales. Now, if they use folk tales, why can't they use it positively to get across? So maybe it's too late for this generation, but the youngsters who have been born now, you can tell them different stories, can't you?
Oh, absolutely. Well, this is part of the argument as to why. I mean, I've touched on already during this episode why some people criticize, giving religion to children, because it sets them down a certain path which is dictated by the religion. But on the flip side of that, a lot of religions, if they are taught to children early doors, you're setting a number of morals in place. So there's the positive angle. So there has to be a middle ground as to what the individual can contribute to society, what their place in society is. So in other words, you've got to be a upstanding member of society. As you get older, you need to contribute, you need to be able to have a family with a loving relationship, have children. These are good, virtuous things to do, rather than some of the negative words which are coming through now, which are me, I'm the most important, sod everyone else. And that's some of the messages which are getting through to the younger generation, which, okay, they're not fables, but they're getting through somehow. And this is what's happening with the youth who are growing up. They're not thinking about them as part of a active society, when instead they're just thinking about themselves, what I want, what's best for me, and sod everyone else.
Oh, it's
That's
amazing.
not a good angle. So I think you're right. Fables have a part to play because little children will listen to them and
Now
they'll take
here,
them on board.
okay. So here are the, would I call them uses? Anyway, I don't know. There's three areas that we notice folklore. Yeah, three areas that we notice that the academia, I'm not going to say we, that
Okay.
I've gone into the academia and talk about this moral education, that folk tales, folklore often contain moral lessons that guide behavior and instill ethical principles.
Yep.
And I think we've kind of lost that to a
We have,
large
yes.
degree. Here's one that is very important: social cohesion.
Yes.
I know the story. You know the story. We both know the stories. And then when we get together, our children get together, those stories actually bind.
Yeah.
And if you don't have those stories, then you're not. Are you really like? I don't know this Nibelung, right? I don't. I mean, I read it. I've come across it. I knew of it because it's an opera.
Okay.
Da, 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 da. Isn't that the Ride of the Valkyries? I hope I'm right. I hope people don't start making fun of me. I think that Wagner opera, and we all know that tune, don't we? That I just hummed. Da, 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 da,
Well, I don't
da.
know.
You
Older
don't know
generation
Wagner?
might. No, I do, but I'm just wondering
Oh, right.
whether
Okay. So yeah,
everybody
I
knows it.
believe that is this Nibelung Dang Ding 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 thing. And I don't know, and I hate opera anyway. The first time I ever got a migraine headache in my entire life was
Was
once
it
when
opera?
I listened to my dad was listening to it on TV, and I had to leave the room eventually. And finally, so I said, sorry, what have I said? I said moral education, social cohesion, and then transmission of norms. And this is where our Marxist friends, the Wokesters, this is where they got in on the act, because transmission of norms, it actually tells you what is a man's role, what's a
Yeah.
woman's role, what's a
Hmm.
soldier's role, what's a king's role. You know what are roles? What are our societal roles? And when you start tampering, if you don't like that, you start tampering with that because you want to change, let's say, women's roles or something. You start tampering with that, then you are undoing the transmission of norms. That in turn has its own effect on undoing, guess what? Social cohesion,
Hmm.
which undoes in its own turn, guess what? Moral education.
Yes.
It's like taking out a string. You know when you're pulling what do they call it? Pulling a thread,
Yeah.
and
And
you
you
think it's going to
pull and
stop,
it
and it
comes
just
out.
keeps on
Yeah.
unraveling and unraveling. Isn't that amazing? You think that you can control it, and then you wake up 20 years later and realize, oh,
Mm.
we couldn't.
But what? Okay, we've discussed that there is an element here of benefit when folklore and stories are passed down through generations.
Hmm.
But now that's all been lost because it's been replaced by online stuff. Because kids are given a tablet, are given a phone at a young age. The art of storytelling is all gone now. It's very
Hmm.
rare that parents do that. I've got to put a plug in for my book. That's why I've got a new book called The Adventures of Boris the Brick. And there's a soft toy that accompanies the book. The whole point of that book was exactly this topic, strangely, because a lot of parents and grandparents are not spending time with the children. They're giving them electronics. Whereas why I wrote the book was for parents to read those stories to the children so the children build a bond with the parents and get engaged in morals, because there's morals in the story, and the way you should behave in a certain manner, but obviously done via the virtue of a brick. So I'm allowed to plug it. I'm part of the show. There you go. But that aside, how do we address this issue going forward? Because electronics are now the stable entertainment system for children, not the parents. So these storytelling, these folklore elements are no longer being passed down. What do we do?
I'm glad you asked, Tony, because you laugh at the beginning of every episode now. You laugh ever since I introduced you to
Oh
the
no,
wise and
Dr.
wonderful
Isaiah
words.
Henry.
Yes, yes. And I
Oh.
will remind you of what he said, because I've told you this before, but you obviously forgotten. When the moon forgets to rise, the river will find its own way. Do you see? Do you understand now? When the moon forgets to rise, the river will still find its own way. When we have shirked
Oh.
when we have shirked our duties, and when we have not held up ours 2 hours, not held up, we haven't. I don't know what the blooming preposition is. When we
We
haven't.
haven't held up our end of the bargain.
Thank you. When we haven't held up our end of the bargain as adults, as the ones to actually guide the children, as society loses its way, it's as if the moon has forgotten to rise. We did not let them. We prevented the moon from rising, but it is inevitable. The river will still find its way. So we still keep the optimism because society is self-righting. Eventually, people will turn around and go, this isn't. I mean, it may have happened now. I mean, I sent you a video. I don't know if you watched it. And I hope we're going to discuss it in a future episode very soon. What plans the president-elect Trump has?
Oh
I mean,
yeah, I did watch it. I mean, he's got some amazing. I mean,
astonishing. Now, I don't want to spoil it because
I know.
So the thing is, if he succeeds even half of what he says he's going to do, that's going to self-right many of the problems we see today. But this discussion we're having now, isn't that a way of pointing to young people? You and I were both old fogies, let's be honest, but young people who are just embarking on their careers as educators and whatnot. You look back to our older, more traditional fairy tales and folklore, and merrily, by reintroducing that into the classroom, they have a major impact on the future of society. Isn't that amazing?
Well, yes, absolutely. But how can they see? Everything is almost commercialism now. If you don't have something that can earn you money, then you're not likely to invest in creating things like this. So, yeah, if
you don't have to create it, it's already there. Just find an old book and teach them the old stories.
Well, yes, if there are old books, we need to make them more available. Maybe some of these old storybooks should be made available to teachers in the early formative years of children, so that they tell them stories which are sort of, as you rightly said already, actually, to help them become a better.
That's the word you're looking for. I
Yeah,
think
and
I
I
know
can't
it.
think what I'm looking for. Become a better member of society. Become a
Absolutely.
better.
I know the word you're looking for. It's on the tip
So
of
you're
my
not a
tongue.
citizen. It's become, yeah. It's so that you're contributing. You're adding value to society. You're doing your bit as a small part of a whole, a bigger picture, so everybody prospers. But you need to be giving that message to children at a young age, so it instills within them that morally it's their duty to be a good citizen, because they'll have a better life by being the best version of themselves, by contributing to society and making everybody's life better. And that's something that gives them that cultural identity to be part of a bigger
Cultural
piece.
identity.
Yeah,
Cultural identity.
yeah.
Which situates you. Do you know the explosion that we've had now, or that we are facing across the West? And I believe also in China, surprisingly, the explosion that we are facing in mental health issues.
Yes.
I believe is actually a dislocation of that social cohesion. People feel disconnected from society.
Absolutely right. I
And
agree.
without that connection, you feel lost and abandoned.
Absolutely correct. I
And
agree with you
I think
100%.
isn't it amazing that a smaller thing has been taught me
Mm.
leads eventually to this dislocation.
Yeah, indeed.
We're just
Because you
really go on.
we are not isolated beings. We only function when we engage with other people, friends, family, colleagues. We feel comfortable when we're in a group and we're cohesive. We moving in the same direction in a positive manner that everybody benefits. But when you have this dislocation where you don't feel part of this because you haven't got that cultural identity with the group, you feel you segregated away, you don't feel part of it because you've created that yourself, because you haven't brought into the system, you haven't wanted to join in, you've isolated yourself thinking me first. That way does create these mental issues. Whereas if we bring people together, ensure that they mix, that they collaborate in so many ways, that brings more benefit to us as a human being. It completes us as human beings, and we become a better version of ourselves because we are not creatures that function well in solitude. We actually need one another, and that's
Do you
why
know?
old people feel disconnected when they don't have any engagement with other people, because they need it. We all need it.
Do you know the greatest marker of longevity
No.
in human longevity? The greatest marker
Family.
scientifically,
No.
companionship.
Right.
Isn't that amazing? Companionship is the greatest marker. All the health advice, all the exercise, and blah, 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 they're all important. I'm not tired. I'm not saying they're not important,
No.
but actually, when it, and people, please look this up. Go ahead, test me on it. Use your search engine, ask, and you'll find, to your shock and amazement, that actually having a good set of friends and people that you really care for, people who care for you, that is the best marker of longevity.
Wow, that's a brilliant way to end the show. So we have reached the end of the show at the moment. So if you've loved this episode, please hit subscribe and stay tuned for more deep dives into prophecies, mysteries, and the unexplained twists of fate. You've listened to Tony and Teo. We are the TNT Talk Show, but unfortunately, we have reached the end of the show for another week.